Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Archives of American Art's Unboxed Lunch. Before we get started, I want to let you know that this is being recorded. My name is Nora, and we're thrilled you're joining us for lunch, which I'm enjoying here in the Shaw neighborhood of Washington, D.C. Our national collector, Josh Franco, is joining us from our offices in downtown D.C. in the Victor Building. And today's event is all about the papers of artist and educator Dudley Huppler, which Josh will be exploring with you in just a couple of minutes. Before we get started, I'd like to go over just a few housekeeping items. At any time during the webinar, you can submit your questions for Josh, which I will read to him as he uncovers materials from the collection. To submit a question, just type it into the Q&A or in the chat. That has buttons at the bottom of your screen on that Zoom bar there. Closed captioning is available. You can access captions by clicking the CC live transcript button on the right side of the control panel on the bottom there as well. And now I'd like to introduce Josh T Franco, National Collector at the Archives of American Art. Hi, Josh.
Hi, Nora. Thanks. And I'm here in my office on one of my our limited days in the office, and I'm happy to be able to at least be here to do this. So like Nora said, I want to show you a new collection, the Dudley Huppler papers. To begin, however, I want to start with a previous collection that was donated in 2 installments in 2017 and 2019. These are drawings on and related to correspondence from Dudley Huppler, but they have a different provenance in their different collection because they came via Tom Ray, who inherited them from Wendell Wilcox, who received them as correspondence from Huppler himself. But they're just a beautiful, very small collection. It's the entire collection is this box here. That's a beautiful, clean example of some of Huppler's work as a visual artist. As Nora said, he was also a writer, published at least 2 publications I know of, and was based in the English department and had a degree in English, but created art his whole life. And through his very particular visual language of stippling or pointillism, you might call it, pen and ink, and devoted to one very particular brand of pen in doing so. You also see in his papers, we'll see evidence later, these are postcards. It was also sometimes a commercial venture. He did make some living off of, collaborating with card companies. I went through and selected a few of these first that are all animal figures, because this speaks to something that I'm just personally very interested in as an art historian. Here's something that's non-animal. Huppler is very much in the kind of milieu of magical realists and late surrealists in the mid-20th century United States. And we'll get into that through some correspondence from some of his peers in that world later. These are beautiful, and you can't totally see the detail. You can if you see these in person, you really see how painstaking this kind of stippling technique is with the pen. But I want to start here because I want to do something a little different as I show you all of these animal figures, something we haven't done yet in an Unboxed, and that is to cite another collection that's unrelated to Huppler, but becomes related once his papers enter the archives. So this is I wonder what people think of this. This is something I say a lot to colleagues in person. I don't, it's kind of so here's my thing. I think that the ultimate art historical question is to figure out the story of the first mark. So this is, definitely tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years ago. Why did humans make a mark? Why did we choose to spend resources and time and energy making pictures when there were probably more physically urgent things going on? And related to that, why are those pictures so often animals? So I'm really thinking of ancient rock art and cave art. And I think about that a lot in the archives. I think we're in the legacy of cave art. I know I'm saying very wild things here. I hope you feel provoked, art historians out there. And so artists who depict animals I see as in that legacy of the first cave painters, especially artists like Huppler, who dedicated so much time and energy to depicting animal figures. So with that in mind, I was really reminded very strongly by going through Huppler's papers of another collection we have. These are the papers of Frederick G.R. Roth, who was an early 20th century sculptor based in New York City. He's responsible for many of the animal sculptures we still encounter in Central Park in New York today. And he also designed and created the Columbia University lion sculpture that rests on that university's campus. So in his papers, we have things like the elevation drawings for that sculpture that many people know very, very well. I think Roth's papers really showed me that there's nothing frivolous about depicting animals. And I think, cave art shows us that as well. But besides making the animal sculptures, he also wrote prolifically about why we do this. So here's this not too delicate, but somewhat delicate typescript from Roth's papers. And having just looked at some of Huppler's drawings, I just want to read the first couple of lines from this essay called Animal Sculpture. Roth was very involved in founding the Sculptors Guild in the United States and gave a lot of talks, and a lot of his typescripts are lectures he gave in that context. So this essay is titled Animal Sculpture, and it begins, representation of animal form is one of the oldest arts known, going back to remote Stone Age, with its remarkable characteristic animal conceptions. The insight and close observation of animal life shown in these early attempts are matters of rather significant interest. These designs, I feel, compare favorably with contemporary work and have points of excelling rarely, if ever, past. The directness and amazing portrayal presupposes an intimate knowledge, close relationship, and understanding that was lost in paying for the advance in culture. So I think to push against a little bit of the darkness is a strong word, but darkness of saying that we lost our connection to animals that Roth is purporting here, I think Huppler shows that impulse actually didn't go away, and not only in the subjects he chose, but in his life. So we'll dig into the actual Huppler papers now, the newly arrived ones. And I want to show you some photographs. So I also this is a great collection's a great example of it. It takes a village to get collections to a home to be preserved. And I do want to thank, first of all, the scholar Robert Cozzolino for putting us in touch. The archives in touch in around 2014, I believe, with the family. Lori Newell so here's just some genealogy. Lori Britton Newell is the daughter-in-law of Thea Tenenbaum, who is the niece of Dudley Huppler. Thea Tenenbaum is unfortunately no longer with us. And the donation was started by Robert and Lori, and then overseen by Addie Sage, who was kind of our person on the ground in Colorado, and I believe on the call. Hello, Addie. And Raphael Malfiari, I hope I'm saying that right, who was married to Thea. So all of this people together worked, and the previous national collector as well, worked to get these papers to us. Nora,
I just want to chime in and encourage folks, since we're so lucky on these programs to have people who were involved in these papers arriving at the archives and have special knowledge of the artist or the material. If you want to chime in at any point as Josh goes through materials, we love that. So please do so if you feel so inclined.
Yeah, and any information you offer will probably be included in my accession note later. So thank you for that. Okay, so I'm leaping to a really fun and sort of odd little collection within the collection, showing that kind of Huppler's connection to animals. So I believe this is Huppler's home, but people on here, please confirm. There's a series of about 20 black and white photographs here. I'll just start showing them to you. Sorry if raccoons freak you out. I know they're polarizing creatures, but I hope you start liking them in this context. So you'll get a better sense of the scene as we go on. So it's clearly raccoons sort of initially entering a home, finding out the humans inside are friendly enough to put, it looks like, casseroles on the floor. I think these are so funny and great. Let's get to, there's definitely more than one. You know, this raises questions like, was this a regular habit? Was this a one-time kind of novel occurrence? Who are these raccoons? And who are these
We're
raccoons?
kind of desperate to know who these raccoons are.
And I
and
believe this is Dudley, although I think at an advanced age, but there's a lot of photographs we can lay out and compare, but if anyone can confirm that now, that'd be great. But I love this shot. It's amazing. And also raccoons, just the way their fur is textured obviously lends itself really well to his illustration method, the kind of stippling and pointillism. So there's a lot of these. I could go on forever, but there's a lot to get into in these papers.
It does look like a recurring dining event. It had a standing reservation.
Here's the biggest crowd. Here, I'll show you the biggest crowd shot. So, I think there's something to think about. Another collection we have, our registrar, Susan pointed out, is Catherine Lane Weems, another animal sculptor. So there's clearly something here for someone in animal studies or who thinks about animals in art to come to the archives and explore. Maybe write something for our journal or blog.
I just wanted to chime in too, Josh, and say, just reference this as an opportunity, not just for the letter that you, or the typescript that you mentioned, but the opportunity for cross-referencing within our collections, but also Smithsonian writ large. I know that we've worked with the Natural Museum of Natural History, the American Museum of the National Museum of Natural History and this is another opportunity.
Yeah, I should scan these and send them to some animal behavior science colleagues over there. And this for other projects in this job in the last couple of years, I've been working a lot with our Anna Phillips, who is a premier world-class parasitic worms biologist at Natural History. So Smithsonian, these papers not only entered the Archives of American Art, but entered the Smithsonian, which puts them in a really great context. Okay, for this next part, I'm going to warn people, I'm going to move the camera. We're getting really experimental in this Unboxed, but for the sake of not messing too much with the delicate document, I'm going to move the camera. So if you're sensitive to that and it might cause vertigo, this is your warning. All right. Okay, so there's this big scrapbook. We love a scrapbook, although often, just FYI, adhesives used in scrapbooks pose some difficulty for conservation, but they're great for chronology because people have put things in order in a certain way, which we like. Besides animals, Huppler's also known for really considering closely the figure, especially the male figure. He associated with a lot of the dance world choreographers. This is certainly a study in the male figure here, a contact sheet, friends and family. Here's Huppler with some drawings and illustrations. This is wild. This camera thing's wild, huh?
Yeah, could you turn it around, Josh? It's like opposite.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, the drawing. So you have to turn, you have to flip.
Well, here's a single page. I'll just hold up one, and then we have a lot of great correspondence to get to. I think
Wait, quick update.
Yeah.
Robert has said that those are Huppler's legs on the first page.
Oh, that's amazing. Great. Thank you. Noted. So I wonder who the photographer was. He was friends with George Platt Lyons, the famous photographer. I'm not saying that those are necessarily, but he really, in the English department, very involved socially, at least in the dance world, and had a lot of thoughts and experience with it, which also brought him into the music world and, of course, visual art. So here's one page from the scrapbook that I'll just hold up.
Robert says that he thinks the photographer was Otto Fenn.
That's great. Give me all the information you can.
Also, the raccoons, Huppler's friend John Wilde and his wife Shirley had a pet raccoon at some point in the 1970s.
Oh, that's great.
They would know if this happened frequently or not.
So that's John Wilde, whose papers we also have and was part of this. Also, I just want to say, this whole world of John Wilde and Huppler and Gertrude Abercrombie, very much connected to New York City and Europe, but a lot of roots in the Midwest. Huppler himself was a really Colorado, Wisconsin person from us, and Sylvia Fine, thank you. It's also just a nice, this is what's going on, in the middle of the country, and it's a lot. All right, so Now I'll get into this entire box is correspondence. Correspondence is really our bread and butter at the archives. And I'm going to do the camera thing one more time. Warning. I got this one ready. So it's just to show you the sort of density. So these are, again, Unboxed is all about new unprocessed collections. These will all be organized and refolded by our archivists eventually, but it is just a lot of letters, and I want to thank the donors for organizing these in sort of bundles that came rubber banded and with a label for who they're from for most of them. So a lot of organizations done. I'm sure our archivists will be very happy to hear that. So, okay, this first letter, like I said, a lot of friends in literature, and also it's also just a great super deep dive into how gay men managed their lives and relationships in the mid 20th century in the US during McCarthyism, for one, and other things. So W.H. Auden, the poet, here are letters from him and a check. So Huppler apparently sent Auden some drawings, and Auden wrote back, the enclosed is not, of course, payment. Call it a Christmas good wish. And it's a check for $10. And it doesn't appear that Huppler cashed it. Probably the signature of Auden might be worth more than the $10 at this point. So that's really nice. It's something you could stay on and think about a while, but there's a lot to get to in a few minutes here. So I'm going to pull out this one folder where I've identified some really great things. So Flannery O'Connor, another writer, here's a letter from her. And let's read a little bit. So Dudley clearly sent her a drawing as well of a guinea, and she writes, the guinea is perfect. I'm all admiration. I have 3 in the backyard right now, raising a ruckus, also 3 young ones. The young ones have bright orange feet and bills and make a noise diminutive and raucous at the same time. So that's a lovely little soundbite from Flannery O'Connor there.
While you're putting that away, Josh, I just wanted to mention a comment from Daniel McMullen, who said, don't forget Marshall Glacier. I'm sorry with these names, are probably incorrect. Carl Priebe and arguably Julia Thessia as part of that circle of Midwest magic realists.
Sure, and Carl Priebe figures largely in the life of Huppler as one of his most important relationships, most significant relationships, in my understanding. So thank you for reminding us of him. This is a letter, so this is part of his kind of connection to dance. This is a letter from Todd, his name I had, and now I'm forgetting. Todd, I want to say Bolender, famous American ballet dancer, choreographer, director. Bolender really, there were critics like in the 50s and 60s, like Clement Greenberg, establishing what an American art was, apart from Europe, apart from being derivative of something else. And Bolender was really doing that for ballet and dance at the same time. So there's a lot of letters from Bolender. They clearly had a close relationship, and they're very lengthy. Some are handwritten, most are typed. They're really colorful, they're really gossipy. They also, show you things. This letter is about receiving money from the NEA to go to Atlanta and help foster dance there. Let's see. Oh, and here, so this is great. Anyone interested in dance and American dance, I think would find this very valuable. So I don't know who they're speaking about. It's in the letter, but just the last few lines. She sounds American. This is about critics for American dance. She sounds American, which is refreshing and not like the fried intellect of Edwin Denby. God knows we need American critics to protect what we've got or evaluate what we've got for what it really is. The method of playing British footsie hasn't been too healthy either for choreographers or dancers. And with that, I will say good night, dear Dudley. And it is such a pleasure to hear from you. Love, Todd. So yeah, it's something that this wasn't, he was, really consciously building the identity of American dance, and it plays out in his letters to Dudley in a really personal, unguarded way. So I'm sure he has public statements about it out there, but these are another side of that, which are great. Oh, and this is, artists and residencies. If any artists are listening, it's very likely your life has been shaped by residency hopping and making your way through that system. Yaddo is one of those residencies that's been around for a long time and fostered a lot of American artists. And this is a letter from Polly Hansen. That's great because it gives you kind of an inside knowledge of that experience and the relationships built there. We also have the Skowhegan records here at the archives, which probably hold documents like this as well. But so this is 21 December 1976. Very dear Dudley, I can't tell you how much a little note means, will always mean to me. The time you were at Yaddo, I've never forgotten. Your presence, wisdoms, gentleness, understanding, all of which has been so beautifully drawn into and so comes out to us from your own work. And then at the end, please know, dear Dudley, I treasure the time we were together at Yaddo, and perhaps sometime somewhere we'll meet again. Until then, we do meet in our work. For now, love to you. So yeah, I love the archives for blurring that line between artists as professionals and artists as humans with relationships. And they overlap, especially in things like, a lot more happens at residencies than just new artwork. Relationship building is a key reason I think artists do them. Let's see. And this is a letter from Glenway. I pulled out some cheat sheets over here if you can't tell. Glenway Westcott, who was an American novelist, another gay man in the mid-20th century, writing here. It's very, very gossipy as well. And here he's writing about his book. For my part, I wish to give you The Pilgrim Hawk, which is a novel he wrote, because you said you liked it, and in appreciation of my liking your work, but not the omnibus, its only edition now in print. I've sent to England for the little blue Hamish Hamilton volume, very pretty, perhaps it arrived. If not, I can get you the Harper one. Yeah, so trading art, an age-old artist tradition.
Here's a, so Robert, because
Sure.
again, Glenway and Dudley were both coming from small towns in Wisconsin in common. And also Jane Bianco has referenced bringing attention to the archive with its Midwest links, which I know we were talking about earlier yesterday about how, everything matters, and especially, well, not especially, but including things that aren't happening in New York and LA and stuff like that, and the importance of highlighting what's going on in the middle of the country as well, and how that collection achieves that.
Yeah. We're beholden to everyone here at the Smithsonian. It means we have to travel quite a bit, but happy to do it. I think all of my curator colleagues would agree. This is just a nice kind of evidence of the business of being an artist. So Wakefield Young Books is a shop in New York City on Madison Avenue, I believe. Yeah, 746 Madison Ave. This letter is 1959. They had an exhibition of Dudley's drawings, and I believe also sold some of his works as cards, or cards bearing his illustrations there. And yeah, it's just very, very sweet and business. Thank you for your letter and for the proofs of the cards. I think early April will be a good time for the show. And as you say, anytime after the first week, let's say April 8th to April 30th. As to the size of the cards, I think it's better to send them as cards rather than to enclose them in an envelope. I would like you to show at least some of the owls at the same time. We have some here, and you may have more of them. Yeah. And then they work out the numbers. I will order 20 sets of the monkeys, 30 sets of the owls in the trees at 75 cents for each set. The stock seems very nice, and we look forward to having them. And I know that I came across it, I don't have it handy now, but I came across the catalog for that show. It's a really, really small little catalog. The show was called something like Owls and Trees in the end, and looked really nice.
Robert says that Huppler used those cards to gain entree into circles and sent them to writers and artists he admired. And the show was in 1956.
That's great. And that there was clearly like a really effective method because people were really charmed and it seems, responded really generously. All right, I'm just going to start grabbing letters now. Let's see. Oh, this is good. This is from someone named Jerry, and they're talking about GPL. I assume that's George Putlines. What grand stories of yours in GPL? I'd love to see the photos of you and those two divine boys, M and M, in their total nudes. There were some dishes, as I recall, from the days long ago when I saw them in New York at the New York Ballet. Last week, I was a social butterfly, went to Joanna P's to pick up a little picture. Yeah, it's great. So this is just, again, dozens and dozens of these letters. There's a lot to do. So I'll note, if you want to know more about Huppler, of course, come visit the papers, but Robert Cozzolino also wrote the book, Dudley Huppler Drawings, from University of Wisconsin Press, that's available, that I have definitely reviewed. And yeah, are there more questions?
Yes, so there is Robert first. I think Jerry is the Jerome Carradis, who was a Milwaukee artist, but he's not certain. And also James Wen says that for researchers who may be interested in investigating connections to the Huppler papers, the Chazen Museum of Art at the University of Wisconsin-Madison has a small collection of works by Dudley Huppler, Carl Prieb, I'm sorry, I'm saying that incorrectly again, Marshall Glossier, Sylvia Fine, and others.
Yeah, I was just at the Chazen about a month ago, actually. It's a great place. So
I think there was a couple of other, that wonderful program with the tree on it. Is that one available? I just loved that.
Yeah, and I think that, oh yeah, I think that's in this box of printed material over here.
Just to leave us on that note.
Yeah. Let's see.
As everyone can see, this is a very rich collection full of a lot of different things to choose from.
I might not find that right now, Nora. Sorry, I know we.
No, that's okay. I love that.
There's a lot of ballet stuff in here. Here's also something that was going around that there's a few of here, and that clearly these artists were all trading were sort of limited edition. We would call them, fancy museum shop terms, but art books combining poetry and illustration. Doll Baby was a nickname that I forgot who, but someone called him frequently. So this is for Doll Baby from Picture Maker. Oh, we found this name the other day. Yeah, 5 poems by Kachik Manazian, illustrated by John Wilde from the Perishable Press Limited. So this is a great John Wilde illustration here.
John Wilde called him that. That's what Robert said.
Okay, great. So yeah, Dudley is Doll Baby from John Wilde. That's great.
I want that to be my nickname. You can call me that now, Josh.
Yeah.
Well, this is great. Thank you so much, Josh. And thanks to everyone for joining us for another Unboxed Lunch. We'll do another one in August. These are going really well. Thank you for all of the support. And support from friends like you makes it possible for us to share collections like the Dudley Huppler papers with people around the world, especially during the pandemic. This has been a great way for us to stay in touch with you and anyone new to the archives and people to explore archives for the first time. If you're interested in making a gift that would be recognized during an installment of Unboxed Lunch, you can contact me, Nora Daniels, at the email my colleague dropped into the chat. It's danielsn@si.edu. And to support the work of our collectors and archivists, you can always just visit us at aaa.si.edu/support. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you next month and have a great weekend. Bye.
Thanks, y'all.